Was this a proposal, though, that was made to the unions? Because that's what the minister said. He says, listen, we've had this on the table for a while with the unions. 2 weeks. 2 weeks, yeah.
2 weeks?
That's what he said, doesn't he?
I missed it.
Yeah,
I didn't miss all of that. Here's what I'm going to tell you. This minister says many things, including the fact they listen to parental consultation, which we now know is quite obviously not the fact. So we're more than happy to sit at the table and to begin conversations based on what the minister said today, but understanding that our main focus is going to continue to be making sure that we can make sure our most vulnerable students have programs in place, making sure that we can look at that e-learn programming. We can take a look at, we had offered that we would do a committee to look at how, if we want to move forward with e-learn, how could we do that? So it's actually something where students can succeed, because e-learn is something that's currently offered and many students really struggle with it. So how about we fix what we currently have in place and then talk about possible expansion?
So just to confirm, are you saying then that you did not receive this offer 2 weeks ago, that this offer was not tabled by the government?
We have not, 2 weeks ago, we did not receive an offer like this.
Is this the first time you're hearing about this?
The 23-1 in this format? Absolutely.
Will you call off the strike for Thursday as the minister requested?
Well, we tried that before. We actually went in good faith to the table, said we would pull back job action, and ended up where this government did not come to the table ready to go where we needed them to go, ready to do what we needed them to do on behalf of our most vulnerable students. So we are now at the situation where we're saying, we will come to the table. We are not in a position at this point to cancel job action until we hear what has to be said, until we see what's been talked about in writing, and until we find if there truly is a path forward that will help all of us, including the students of this program.
You represent teachers.
2018-2019 levels. That's 22-1.
That's right.
Is that unacceptable to you, 23-1 at this point?
When you look at, even the minister himself said their own regulation said 22.5. Yeah. And yet that is not the average that's happening across this province. And we know the number of programs that have been cancelled. We know the number of programs that students don't have access to. So for the minister to say, well, we're freezing it at what we funded, it is a little disingenuous, because that would be 22.5 and it isn't. And we need to think about pathways forward for students.
But you're saying you're not willing to accept 23-1 at all. You want it to go back to at least the regulation to 22-1.
We have talked about moving back to 22-1 because there's a whole bunch of other things that happen within that funding, making sure, again, special education funding is one thing, but when we talk about vulnerable students, we're not just talking about our identified students. And oftentimes programs for them, for those unidentified students who are still in vulnerable situations or need additional assistance, those funding came through the 22-1. That's how we were able to offer some programs that we wouldn't otherwise have been able to offer, and in fact are not taking place right now.
But Liz, you represent teachers in the primary, junior, and high school level. You're unique among the unions on that. Why should your high school teachers and high school students get 23-1 when junior students get 24.5-1? Why is that acceptable for grades 4 to 8, but not grades 9 through 12?
Because I think we need to understand with the secondary class sizes around those averages, it's those funds are utilized to run more than just the math classes, the English classes, the history. The way the funding flows is those averages, and that funding enables boards to run credits and to run programs where you may only have 8 students in a class. So they actually utilize that funding to run some of those programs for more vulnerable students and to run some of the special education programs that are not adequately funded through special education.
Why did you, okay. Oh, sorry, Sean. Harvey, are you satisfied with
the president of the OSSTF, Harry Bischoff, also responding to these proposed changes? Let's listen in.
Actually, down at the hotel, having exploratory talks, which could lead to bargaining, the minister once again, in another amateur hour move, interrupts that by going to a podium. Why doesn't he put that on a proposal pass it across the table down at the Sheraton where I just came from, and maybe we'd have an opportunity to move forward.
But Harvey, he said that this proposal has been put to the unions, and it has been for weeks.
This proposal has not been put to the union. It's certainly not been put to my union. We haven't been in negotiations since December the 16th. For weeks and weeks, this minister seemed to have moves at other bargaining tables and seemed to feel that the students who are served by the members of the other unions deserved more of his effort than the students who are served by my members. I can't understand what kind of game he's playing when he does that, but we have had no such positions put across the table to us. I've been down at the hotel for the last 2 days. We started Sunday night. We were still in active discussions, and this minister chose to roll a hand grenade out on the table again and blow things up.
Bargaining day now. Can you bargain?
Based on what you heard today, is that acceptable? 23 to 1 and an opt-in or opt-out for mandatory e-learning. Is that acceptable to your union?
I would like to see him bring proposals to the bargaining table where we can have some discussions. He hasn't done that. There has been no proposal that mirrors what he said in here. By the way, with regard to job actions, we have offered repeatedly, if he commits to last year's staffing levels, the ratios of professionals to students in our schools, we will postpone job action and take absolutely everything else back to the bargaining table. He still hasn't managed to commit to that today. And let's be clear about what he's proposing today. It's still the loss of well over 1,000 English public secondary teachers who serve, in many cases, high needs, at-risk, special education students. And that's the proposal that he was making today. It's really, it wasn't quite the show that he was hoping.
The exploratory talks, can you start bargaining at this point? I mean, you've had 3 days of exploratory talks. Can you not set a bargaining date?
Yeah, 2 days, and we'll see if we're in a position to move forward to start making progress. But this didn't help at all. This just interrupted yet again. It's not unlike what he's done before. He's at a podium while I'm down with my bargaining team at the hotel.
But if he puts this on paper,
Harvey, isn't this a fair proposal though, to keep wages, relatively stable and to reduce some of the more drastic proposals?
So let's be clear again. This is not a proposal. This is a press conference. If they want to make proposals at the bargaining table, we'll have the opportunity to have discussions. Let's also be clear, he's still talking about the elimination of well over 1,000 jobs of teachers, many of whom serve high-need students. And I don't know, I saw the consultations. I didn't see any parents who were clamoring for larger classes, fewer support for our special needs students. We have a loss of education workers this year that they imposed by funding cuts. We've had students this year that have gone without the supports that they need as special needs students. They leverage that against the bargaining table. They're still not prepared to fully restore those. And so, we are still looking at a loss of service to students, and that's the critical piece.
but if he puts this deal on paper,
all of these jobs. Can you explain the loss of all of these jobs if class sizes are essentially maintaining, or if he's maintaining classes essentially the same?
Let's be clear when he talks about this 100% restoration of funding. So when it comes to the Local Priorities Fund and associated funds, last year there was 1.35 teachers for every 1,000 students that, in many cases, as I say, supported high-need students. This year they're talking about 0.33 teachers for every 1,000 students. Between that and the move to 23 to 1, we're talking about the loss of well over 1,000 teachers still.
Harvey, OECTA has said that it's willing to take 1%. I mean, it's not happy about it. It's going to continue the court challenge. Is OSSTF willing to take 1%?
So they've been at a bargaining table involved in negotiations. We haven't been, because the government has refused to come to our bargaining table or refused to send any signal that they're prepared to do anything useful. So we're now in the point, or we were at the point up till this afternoon, of having exploratory discussions, which unfortunately got interrupted yet again by this minister.
okay, so Harvey, if the minister, I know you said that this is a press conference, if his team puts this on paper, and they are rolling back on the mandatory e-learning or making it optional, and they are making some moves on class sizes, are you any closer to a deal if this is on paper?
We're going to have the opportunity, if they want to put a proposal across the table, to start having some productive discussions. And at the table is exactly where these things should be happening. And he should instruct his bargaining team to do that rather than him doing it at a podium here in the press
The part about this was through the announcement this afternoon, the public announcement.
They've made no proposal like this to us at the bargaining table.
So was he lying when he said that he made that they've made this proposal to the union?
You know what? I'm not gonna get into what his motives are. I know what he said is untrue, and that's just a reality. No such proposal has been made to us.
That would be a lie then.
Thanks, Harvey.